Have you ever felt like you're living in a sitcom gone wrong? Mine started with a literal dumpster fire, a wheelchair ablaze, all thanks to an HOA president on a power trip. I'm Jack, a small-town Ohio police chief, and this is the story of how Karen Burns, our neighborhood's self-appointed dictator, torched my disabled son's lifeline and thought she'd get away with it. Spoiler alert, she didn't know who she was messing with. Buckle up, because this tale of entitlement, revenge, and justice is about to get wild. Hey folks, before we dive into this mess, let me know in the comments, are you watching this on your phone, tablet, or are you old school like me and using a computer? I'm curious. I'm Jack, 50 years old, a veteran who served as military police before trading desert camo for a police chief's badge in a sleepy Ohio town. I've seen it all, from bar fights to international conflicts. And it's left me with a cynical streak and a dry sense of humor. But don't let that fool you. I'd move mountains for the people I love, especially my son, Mikey. After years of chaos, I moved us to this upscale community for peace and accessibility. It promised a fresh start, with wide sidewalks and quiet streets perfect for Mikey's needs. In my downtime, I'm either wrenching on a '67 Mustang in my garage, firing up the grill for some ribs, or kicking back with a John Wayne Western. Simple pleasures for a complicated life. Mikey's my 16-year-old son, and he's the kind of kid who lights up a room. He's got a quick wit, loves video games like Fortnite, and can take apart a circuit board faster than I can change a tire. A car accident 2 years ago left him paralyzed from the waist down, but it didn't dim his spirit. I still remember that night, the screech of tires, the shattered glass, and the hospital's sterile smell crushed me, watching my boy fight through surgeries and therapy. The insurance company dragged us through legal hell, but Mikey's resilience kept us going. His wheelchair is his freedom. A custom job with ergonomic cushions, a lightweight frame, and a joystick he tweaked himself for precision. It's not just a chair. It's his legs, his independence, his life. Our new neighborhood screams perfection. Every lawn is manicured, mailboxes are identical brushed nickel, and parking rules are enforced like it's the Pentagon. The HOA runs this place like a fiefdom, and at its helm is Karen Burns, the queen of petty tyranny. Karen's in her late 40s, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer yoga pants, and a smile that's all teeth and no warmth. A former corporate exec, she's traded boardrooms for HOA meetings, wielding her rulebook like a scepter. She's obsessed with community standards, which means everyone's life must bend to her whims. Our first run-in, she complained Mikey's basketball hoop was tacky. Then it was the ramp to our house. Apparently, its shade of beige was offensive. She even called Mikey's medical equipment clutter. Her passive-aggressive notes, signed with a flourish, started piling up. Please comply with HOA guidelines for a harmonious community. Harmonious, my ass. I came home from a long shift to a nightmare. Smoke was curling up from our driveway, the acrid stench of burning plastic hitting me like a punch. Mikey was outside, his face pale, eyes wide with horror, his wheelchair, his custom $10,000 lifeline was engulfed in flames, the frame melting into a twisted wreck. Karen stood nearby, arms crossed, her lips curled into a smug smirk. It violated HOA regulations, she said, like she was scolding a kid for a messy yard. Unsightly modifications, a fire hazard. She waved a copy of the HOA agreement, citing clauses about aesthetic consistency. My blood boiled. I wanted to scream, to grab her by her designer scarf and shake sense into her. But years of police training kicked in. I clenched my fists, took a breath, and started memorizing every detail. Her words, her expression, the scene. Mikey's distress cut deeper than her arrogance. This wasn't just property damage. It was an attack on my son. As Karen strutted back to her McMansion, she had no idea who I was. Not just a dad, not just a neighbor, the new police chief. She thought she could burn Mikey's world and walk away. Big mistake. I stood there, watching the flames die down, thinking, she just messed with the wrong cop. You know that saying, don't poke the bear? Well, Karen just poked a bear with a badge and a whole lot of pent-up frustration. after she torched Mikey's wheelchair. I was ready to bring the full weight of my police chief authority down on her. But this wasn't just about rage. It was about justice, and I needed to play it smart. Mikey was a mess, sitting on the porch, staring at the smoldering ruins of his wheelchair. "Dad, what am I going to do now?" he asked, voice cracking. I hugged him tight, promising we'd get a new one. Better than before. His eyes, usually so bright, were dull with hurt. It gutted me. I sent him inside with his gaming console to distract him. But I knew this would linger. I called the fire department to document the scene. They confirmed the fire was deliberate. Accelerant traces on the chair. Their report was my first piece of evidence. My mind raced. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a criminal. But as police chief, I had to tread carefully. One wrong move and she'd spin this against me. I grabbed my camera, snapping photos of the charred wheelchair, the driveway, and Karen's smug face before she left. I started a file, labeling it Burns Incident. Next, I canvassed the neighbors. Mrs. Henderson, a sweet retiree, saw Karen douse the chair with lighter fluid. "She's been terrorizing everyone," she whispered, glancing nervously at Karen's house. Others shared stories. Fines for wrong flower beds, threats over kids' bikes. The HOA rules were absurd. Grass couldn't exceed 2.5 inches. Holiday lights had to be white only. I dug into the HOA handbook, finding vague clauses Karen twisted to justify her vendettas. She'd weaponize bureaucracy, but I'd find the cracks. I met with Tom, a lawyer friend who specialized in HOA disputes. Over coffee, he laid it out. HOAs are tough to fight. Karen's got the board in her pocket. But if you prove criminal intent, you can nail her for property damage and harassment. He warned it'd be costly and slow. Lawsuits always are. Emotional distress for Mikey was another angle. But we needed ironclad evidence. Tom stressed documentation. Every photo, statement, and receipt. I left his office determined to build a case that'd bury Karen. Back home, I started a timeline, logging every interaction with her, from her snide ramp complaints to this arson. Then I got curious about the HOA's finances. As a member, I had access to their records, so I requested the last 3 years' worth. Flipping through, I spotted oddities. $15,000 for landscaping consultation to a company called Green Vista. $8,000 for event planning. With no events held, Green Vista's address was a P.O. box, and a quick search tied it to Karen's cousin. Another payment went to a maintenance firm with no online presence. My cop instincts screamed embezzlement. Karen wasn't just a control freak. She was skimming funds. I needed more proof, but this was a start. Late that night, poring over bank statements, I found a hidden account under the HOA's name. With $50,000 in undocumented transfers, my pulse quickened. This wasn't pocket change, it was a trail. If I could tie it to Karen, her reign of terror was over. I leaned back, the glow of my laptop lighting up the room, and thought, she's not just going down for the wheelchair, she's going down for everything. Sometimes the best way to catch a crook is to follow the money. And in Karen's case, the money trail led straight to a whole lot of trouble. That hidden HOA account was my golden ticket, and I was about to cash it in to bring her down. Using my police resources, I traced the $50,000 account to a shell corporation, Blue Peak Solutions, owned by Karen's brother, Greg. Bank records showed transfers funding Karen's lifestyle. $12,000 for a Caribbean cruise, $7,500 for a designer handbag, even $3,000 for a consulting fee to herself. She was siphoning HOA dues like a personal ATM. I gathered statements, invoices, and transaction logs, building a case tight enough to withstand any defense. Every receipt was a nail in her coffin, and I was swinging the hammer. My desk was a war zone of highlighted documents, each one screaming her guilt, but I needed more than financials. She'd slither out unless I had her dead to rights. I dug into Karen's past. A deep dive revealed a pattern. 3 previous HOAs, 3 trails of chaos. In one, she'd find an elderly couple into bankruptcy over non-compliant shutters. In another, she'd bullied a single mom out of her home for excessive holiday decorations. A Reddit thread on r/HOA horror stories lit up with her name. Karen Bones ruined our lives. One user wrote, detailing how she'd targeted their autistic son's sensory garden. Another described her forging signatures to pass bylaws. She wasn't just a nuisance, she was a predator. I printed the thread, adding it to my file. Her history wasn't evidence, but it was motive. I confronted Karen at her pristine doorstep, folder in hand. Care to explain Blue Peak Solutions? I asked, voice calm but eyes hard. She scoffed, her Botox smooth face barely moving. Baseless accusations from a disgruntled neighbor. She snapped, threatening to sue me for harassment. Her arrogance was staggering. She thought she was untouchable. I didn't blink, just told her to lawyer up. She retaliated fast, filing complaints with the city council about my abuse of power. Her connections ran deep. She had friends in high places, but I wasn't backing down. The city council meeting was a circus. Karen, in a tailored blazer, spun tales of my vendetta, painting herself as a saintly volunteer. Some council members lapped it up, swayed by her crocodile tears. Others, knowing me, pushed back. The room crackled with tension. Local news caught wind, splashing police chief versus HOA tyrant across headlines. My phone buzzed with reporters' calls, but I stayed cool, issuing a statement. I'm protecting my son and this community. Mikey, watching from home, texted me, "Kick her butt, Dad." I smiled, refocused. Karen's pressure tactics were backfiring. She was drawing too much attention. That night, my phone rang. An unknown number. A raspy voice growled, "Back off, Chief, or you'll regret it." The line went dead. My gut twisted, not from fear, but from clarity. Karen was desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. I saved the call log, thinking, keep digging your grave, Karen. I'm right behind you. Time to turn the tables. There's one thing to play dirty, but when you come after a cop's family, you're signing your own warrant. That threatening call only sharpened my focus. Karen was unraveling, and I was ready to catch her in the act. This wasn't just about Mikey's wheelchair anymore. It was about dismantling her empire of corruption. I decided to set up a sting. At the station, I huddled with my most trusted officers, laying out the plan. We're not just nailing her for arson, I said. We're taking her down for everything. Embezzlement, fraud, the works. The goal was irrefutable evidence, something a jury couldn't ignore. Our strategy: plant an undercover officer in the HOA as a new resident to infiltrate Karen's inner circle. I picked Officer Sarah Miller, a seasoned detective with a knack for blending in. We mapped out every detail, her cover story, her approach, how she'd document Karen's crimes. My team was all in. They'd seen Mikey's distress and knew what was at stake. I briefed them on operational security. No leaks, no mistakes. We get one shot, I told them. Let's make it count. Sarah moved into a rental in the neighborhood, posing as a single mom with a knack for gardening Karen's kind of babe. She hit the ground running, attending HOA meetings with a bright smile and a notebook. Karen, ever the queen bee, took to her immediately when Sarah volunteered for the landscaping committee. Sarah played the part perfectly. Eager, agreeable, just shy of sycophantic. Over weeks, she gained Karen's trust, sharing coffee at HOA events and nodding along to Karen's rants about sloppy residents. Behind the scenes, Sarah was a machine. She recorded conversations with a hidden mic, noting every time Karen bragged about bending rules. The real breakthrough came when Karen asked Sarah to oversee a new community beautification project. "I'll handle the contractor," Karen said with a wink. Sarah smelled a rat and a chance. Sarah's intel was gold. Karen was soliciting bribes from contractors for HOA contracts. One meeting, caught on Sarah's audio, had Karen telling a landscaper, $5,000 cash, and the job's yours. Don't worry about the board. Sarah tailed the contractor, snapping photos of him slipping Karen an envelope in a Starbucks parking lot. She dug deeper, uncovering a paper trail. Fake invoices for consulting services funneled to Blue Peak Solutions, Karen's brother's shell company. Sarah's committee role gave her access to HOA emails, where she found Karen instructing the treasurer to adjust budget lines. Every piece, recordings, photos, emails, was meticulously catalogued, legally obtained, and admissible. Sarah's reports landed on my desk like Christmas presents. We were building a fortress of evidence, brick by brick. Meanwhile, I ramped up surveillance. With a warrant, we pulled security footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera, catching Karen meeting another contractor at midnight, exchanging cash under a streetlight. We intercepted her emails through a subpoena, revealing coded messages about bonuses for loyal vendors. One phone call, tapped legally, had her laughing about stupid residents paying for her new hot tub. Every move she made tightened the noose. I cross-referenced her financials with Sarah's findings, ensuring every transaction was traceable. The case was bulletproof. Embezzlement, bribery, fraud, plus the arson charge for Mikey's wheelchair. Karen thought she was invincible, but she was walking into a trap. The takedown came at an HOA meeting, packed with residents griping about rising dues. Karen stood at the podium, preaching about community pride, her usual smug grin in place. I waited in the back, heart pounding but steady. Sarah, in the front row, gave me a subtle nod. Showtime. I stepped forward, badge gleaming, and interrupted. Karen Burns, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and abuse of power. The room gasped as I laid out the evidence. Bank records, audio clips, photos of cash exchanges. I played a recording of her bribe demand, her voice echoing in the stunned silence. Sarah handed me the warrant, and I cuffed Karen in front of her fiefdom. Residents whispered, some clapping, others filming on their phones. Mikey, watching via livestream at home, texted me a fist bump emoji. Karen's face twisted shock, then fury. This is a setup, she shrieked, yanking against the cuffs. I'm a victim of harassment. Her designer heels scuffed the floor as I led her out. The evidence was overwhelming. Her denials were theater. Residents erupted, some cheering, others hurling insults she'd earned over years of bullying. Mrs. Henderson, the retiree, shouted, "About time!" As we passed. Karen's reign was over, and she knew it. In the squad car, she glared at me, venom in her eyes. You'll pay for this, Jack. I shut the door, unfazed. She'd built her throne on lies, and I just kicked it down. As we drove to the station, Karen's voice carried through the petition, promising revenge. You think this is over? I'll ruin you and your crippled kid. My grip tightened on the wheel, but I stayed calm. She was done, cuffed, caught, and cornered. The evidence was airtight, and her threats were just noise. I glanced in the rearview mirror, her silhouette slumped in defeat, and thought, keep talking, Karen. You're only digging deeper. The real fight was coming, and I was ready. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And Karen was about to take a nosedive from the highest branch of the HOA tree. Her arrest was just the beginning. Now came the reckoning, and I was determined to see it through for Mikey and every neighbor she terrorized. The story exploded across local media like wildfire. News vans parked outside the station, reporters shouting questions as I walked past. Chief, is this personal? One asked. I kept my cool, saying only, justice isn't personal. It's necessary. Headlines screamed, HOA tyrant busted by hero cop. With grainy photos of Karen in cuffs, the community rallied behind us, leaving casseroles and thank you notes at our door. Mikey, strolling through comments online, grinned at one. Chief Jack's the John Wick of Ohio. But the national spotlight was brighter. CNN picked up the story, framing it as a crusade against HOA abuse. Reddit threads multiplied, with r/entitled people calling Karen the ultimate HOA villain. The attention was dizzying, but it amplified our cause. Karen's trial was a spectacle. The courtroom buzzed with reporters and residents, the air thick with anticipation. Prosecutors laid out our evidence like a royal flush. Bank records, audio of her bribe demands, Sarah's photos of cash exchanges, and the fire department's report on Mikey's wheelchair. Contractors testified about paying her for contracts, one admitting, She said it was how business worked. Former residents shared horror stories. Fines for minor infractions. Threats to foreclose. A financial expert traced every cent she'd embezzled, projecting spreadsheets that made jurors gasp. Karen sat stone-faced, her lawyers scrambling to spin her as a dedicated volunteer. The guilty verdict came fast. Embezzlement, fraud, arson, and abuse of power. The judge sentenced her to 7 years. Her designer suit swapped for an orange jumpsuit. As she was led away, she shot me a venomous glare. I stared back, unflinching. Justice tasted sweet. The HOA was in shambles, but the community stepped up. A new board was elected, led by Mrs. Henderson, who vowed transparency. They slashed absurd rules. No more fines for wrong mailbox colors or grass height. Financial audits became mandatory, with every penny accounted for. Residents formed a support group for vulnerable neighbors, ensuring no one faced Karen-style harassment again. Mikey spoke at a meeting, his voice steady. "This place is our home, not a prison." The applause was deafening. New policies prioritized accessibility, like ramps and wider sidewalks, making the neighborhood truly welcoming. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, built on the ashes of Karen's reign. Mikey's new wheelchair was a game-changer. Neighbors crowdfunded $15,000, buying a state-of-the-art model with a sleek carbon fiber frame, adjustable controls, and a custom gaming joystick Mikey designed himself. He zoomed around, grinning like a kid on a bike. "Dad, this thing's faster than your Mustang," he teased. The community's kindness floored me. Donations came with notes like, "For Mikey's freedom, I used my platform as chief to push for disability rights." Meeting with city officials to fund accessible parks and sidewalks. Mikey joined me, sharing his story at council meetings, his resilience inspiring change. I'd never been prouder. This fight had hardened us, but it also showed us what community could mean. Then came the twist. A letter arrived, postmarked from Karen's prison. It was from her son, Ethan, a college kid I'd never met. "I'm sorry for what my mom did," he wrote. "She was wrong, and I'm ashamed." He described growing up under her control, her obsession with status blinding her to others' pain. Ethan had cut contact years ago but followed the trial online. "I hope Mikey's okay," he added, including a $100 gift card from Mikey's favorite game store. I showed Mikey, expecting anger, but he just shrugged. "Sounds like he's not her," he said, pocketing the card. It was a small gesture, but it humanized the mess, reminding me even Karen had a life beyond her crimes. Reflecting on it all, I realized justice wasn't just about locking Karen up. It was about rebuilding what she'd broken. Mikey was thriving, the community was healing, and I'd found purpose in protecting the vulnerable. The cynic in me softened, just a bit, seeing good triumph over entitlement. This wasn't the quiet life I'd planned, but it was better, messy, real, and ours. If you enjoyed the story of justice and revenge, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Tell me in the comments, what's the wildest HOA story you've heard? Let's keep the conversation going.